Today we're going to have a look at this poor old dual record player. It certainly has seen some better days, so let's see if we can get it working again. Welcome to the basement. Recently I was visiting a friend of mine and he said, do you think you could fix this old record player that I've got sitting around in the shed? So I had a look at it and I agreed to take it back to the basement, and we're going to see today whether or not it's actually going to work or whether it's fixable. Now the first thing we want to do obviously is give this old dual player a clean. It's super dirty and super dusty from living, must be years now, sitting in a shed. So we'll do that first, we'll get it nice and clean, and then we'll have a look and see, does it actually work, and can we kind of fix up this crooked timber and make it look respectable again. So let's go. So the first step is we probably want to remove this cover, and thankfully they just lift off, which is quite convenient. So we'll put them aside and we'll give them a good clean. Now this is the record player itself, and can you see that the timber here is all crooked? So whether it's had a fall or something's dislodged, but the bed is actually, like, the guts are sitting crooked inside this timber frame. So we're going to have to work out what's going on with that and see if we can fix that as well. Generally just give everything a clean up. The platter spins quite nice, like it's a weighted platter, so it spins quite nicely and the bearings feel really good, but it is scraping on something because I can hear a scraping noise. So we'll have a look at that as well. But first up, why don't we clean these nasty plastics to stop me getting filthy hands, and I'll give everything else a bit of a spray and wipe and just get everything a bit respectable before we can start pulling things apart. It's fairly clean. I'll give it a proper clean in a tub of hot water a bit later, but at least it's not making our hands grubby anymore. So I'll put that aside and we'll have a look at the unit itself. So you can see from this view here, there's something going wonky with the frame. So the record player itself and the base of it are not in line with this wooden piece here. This has gone really crooked. So we'll work out what to do with that. Whether we can take this right off, I'm not sure. But I'll give this bit here a bit of a clean and just get the grime off, and then I might plug it in and see if it spins up and see what we're working with. So let's keep cleaning. Okay, so I've pulled the platter off. The platter is really heavy, so that's a good sign. When something's made this heavy, you know the quality is quite good. It's an idle wheel design player, so this drives the platter and this is the motor which drives the idle wheel. I actually thought it would have belts in it, so I guess that's something we don't have to replace, that doesn't have belts. But we'll have to see whether or not it works. So I might keep pulling it apart and just see if I can figure out why this timber side is all kind of crooked. So let's keep going. There we go. Well, that's pretty easy. Just had a couple of plastic clips on the side, which if I clip them both, so you can raise and lower the outside. So I'm sure that's there's some sort of reason why you'd want to do that. I'm not quite sure what it is, but they've designed it so you can do that. So yeah, anyway, let's plug it in, see what happens. So we've got our power. Let me just plug it in to the socket. Okay, straight away we can see that this light's come on, and you can see that the motor's spinning around and doing what it should do. It sounds a little bit noisy, so we'll see if we can oil it up and see if that will make a bit of a difference to that. But I think we need to get deeper into this machine to really work out if it's fixable and we can get it operating the way it should be. So I'll keep digging. So I have just been trying to change the speed on the record player, which is this knob here. It's on 33 at the moment, and all this should do, this knob, it should just lift this idle wheel up and down in relation to the spindle on the motor, which changes the speed, but I can't seem to, I don't want to force it because it might break. It feels really locked into 33. So this whole mechanism might be a little bit jammed up, might be gummed up somehow. So we'll have to have a look at that. Over on this side here, we've got a start and stop mechanism as well. And again, I don't want to force it because you can see that I'm just bending the latch here. So I don't want to break that, that latch. So there's something jammed in there as well. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. And over here, we've got 3 settings, and that's for the size of the disc that we've put on for automatic mode. That seems to work fine. Right, so I've pulled the mechanism out of the case. We've got it here. You can see the back of it. Hats off to the guys that built these things, because this is before computers. They would have sketched all this out, worked it all out, built test mechanisms, and anyway, let's leave it as it is, and I'll just try and oil what I can and see if I can get it working there. So we've got the motor spinning. I'm just going to put a little bit of lubricant down on the shaft there. So that's quite a bit quieter. I think that's fixed the motor noise. But let's have a look at why these mechanisms don't seem to want to move. There's something jamming them. So that speed mechanism that seems to be jammed is connected to this shaft here, and this mechanism right here. We'll lube it up and see what happens. Oh yep, look at that. Just a bit of lubrication works wonders. So we can have it on 33, 45, and it jumps down to the next step in the motor. And on 78, it jumps down to the final step on the motor. And so that's the simple way that these idler wheel record players control the speed. They just jump from spindle to spindle. And this one actually has a fine tune adjuster. The spindle on the motor is actually tapered, so as that idler wheel moves up and down, it just slightly adjusts the speed. So that's one thing fixed. So let's have a look at the start and stop switch. As you can see, it's not wanting to flick over to the stop position. Okay, I've figured out what was wrong with it. This kind of mechanism, once you click it to start, it needs to fully rotate to be able to stop it again. And it's just to do with the way the mechanism works in the back. So if we rotate it as though the spindle was spinning, it actually resets the switch. So we can see the switch is reset now back to halfway, so it can be stopped. So if the platter was spinning, then once you've started it, it spins around and you can then stop it because it's back to the neutral position. So now I think all of the switch gear is working. I might throw the platter back on and just see if it actually runs up to correct speed. So why don't we do that? Right, I was putting this platter back on, and I think I found the source of that funny scraping noise when we spun it around before. This piece of paper is fairly loose, and so if I put that on, that's just going to scrape around inside, which is what it's been doing. So I'll glue that back down before I put the platter back on. Okay, I think that's worked. Let's put the platter on and see how it spins. Right, it's a lot quieter, and you can see that because the platter's so heavy, once it's spinning, it just wants to keep spinning. So that's actually a sign of a really high quality player. I know these duals, they use the idler wheel, which is generally considered to be like a cheaper mechanism. But from what I've seen, these guys have really done everything they can to make it work well. The proof will be in the pudding, of course, so why don't we plug it in and see. Okay, so power's on, and it's not spinning because we have reset the start and stop switch. So let's set it to start. and I'll set it to 33. Nothing's happening. So I expected it actually to start spinning. So that's telling me that the idler wheel is not quite doing what it's supposed to be doing just yet. Further investigation, I think. So I've found there's actually a secondary lever on the end of this larger lever to make this idler wheel go in and out slightly. And that was quite stiff as well. So I've freed that up. So now when we go to the gear, you can see it engages and then the wheel slides to the outside. So I'm hoping that that's fixed it, because now I can see that now it's sliding to the outside. It should be running against the rim of our platter. So I'll throw the platter back on and see if it is working. And I'll hit the start. Hey, look at that. Away she goes. What we need to do is have a look down this. It's got this quite a unique feature I've not ever seen before. I'll see if I can get it on camera. It's got like this weird sort of a sight glass that you look down and you can see, using a system of mirrors, you can actually see all of those dashes which are on the underside of the platter, and you can see if they are actually running in the speed that they're meant to be running. You can see the 45 line and the 33 line, they're both moving. So the 33 should be stationary because we've got it set on 33. So let me just adjust the fine tuning, and there we go. So we've got the speed locked in for the 33. So it's giving us what the record player is actually telling us is a locked on speed. So what I'll do later is throw a test record on here and we'll actually see if it can produce a constant 1 kilohertz tone. But I'm pretty happy for now. It looks pretty good. Let's try 45. So I'll flick it up to 45. And you can see the 45 line now is almost solid. Let's just adjust the fine tune adjuster here. And there we have it. We've locked it into 45. So all that's really left to do is the cosmetics and making it look as good as we can before we hand it on back. Now, one thing I want to do first though is throw a test record on here and just check that it actually plays. Okay, I've found my test record and I've given the rubber mat a little bit of a clean before I put that record on there. But before we chuck the record on, let's talk about PCBWay. PCBWay is the best place for you to go and get all of your PCB needs met. They offer a range of different PCBs, a range of colors, very high quality, and they also offer CNC machining and they do 3D printing as well. It really is a one-stop shop for you to meet all of your prototyping needs. Or if you're a hobbyist, it's a great place to see that project come to life. So thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring the video today. Right, we've got our test record on the machine and I've found this little Hitachi mini system which has a phonograph input. So I've been trying to find something in my collection that I can actually fit on the desk that will take a phonograph and have room for the speakers as well. This should serve that purpose nicely. So we've got the test record playing. Let's drop the needle and see what we get. Okay, now straight away I noticed that there's more sound coming out of the right speaker than the left speaker. If I put the balance over to the left, I can still hear it, but it's a lot quieter. Now that could have something to do with these dodgy wires here that have been sellotaped together. Or maybe it's an issue with the stylus. Not quite sure yet, we'll wait and see on that one. But it's making sound, so that's a good start. We'll just see if we can get that sound balanced. Now what I want to also do while we've got the test record on here is just check for speed. So I'm going to put a 1 kilohertz tone on and just see what that comes up in our real-time analyzer, and see if it's on the money in regards to speed. Okay, I've got the frequency analyzer listening to the frequencies now. At the moment it's picking up my voice. We're going to play a 1 kilohertz tone on this record and we want that to be saying 1000 at the top there. So let's drop the needle and see if we get that 1 kilohertz tone on our RTA. It's pretty close, it's about 1%. within spec. So I think for an idler wheel design like this record player, that's not too bad, and there wasn't too much fluctuation there, maybe about 3 or 4 hertz. So it looks like the record player is operating as expected in regards to speed. I'm not sure what kind of specs these idler wheel machines have. I know they're not always as accurate as a decent belt drive or a direct drive. I'm pretty happy with that. It sounds pretty good. You can't audibly hear the wound flutter to my ears, but we might see if we fix these leads, if that fixes the quiet left channel issue with this machine. So I'll do that now. Now we've got our signal wire here. This runs off to our lead. So I've just got an RCA lead here and I've chopped the end off. That's going to be our new lead, and I'm going to join it back here inside the body of the machine. So let's cut the wire around about here somewhere. And get rid of that. And we'll throw that in the bin. So let's run our new wire back through the case. So now we just have to join these two wires together. Let's see if we can use magic. Well, that was easy. Now let me flip it back the right way around. I'll plug it in, put it back together, and we'll see if it's playing properly out of both channels. Okay, it's playing. Let's have a look at the left channel and the right channel. Okay, so it's still a lot quieter on that left channel. The problem must lie somewhere else, and my next suspect is the stylus. So we'll swap that out and see if that makes a difference. Well, I fixed it. Not entirely sure how. I did look to find another stylus, but I don't have any that fit this machine. And to be honest, I think the one that's in there is not really designed for it, because it has a round back on it, and it has like a diamond shaped receptacle. Anyway, I fiddled around with that a bit, and the wires on the back, one of them seemed to be a little bit loose, the tiny wires on the back of this head shell, and poked at it with my tiny screwdriver, and now it sounds great. Full volume out of both channels. That's the left, and that's the right, and it actually sounds really nice. So easy fix, I guess. So that's a great result. I'm not quite sure how I fixed it, but it's fixed. So all that's left to do now is put it back together, and I'll see if I can do something about that broken lid. Okay, this is all the pieces of the lid, and you may remember it's got some of this brown packing tape residue on there. So I'm going to see if I can get rid of that first before trying to sort out all these three pieces and why they're here. So I have been experimenting a bit, and I'm finding that with the IPA, I think that's going to work, and it sort of dissolves that brown stuff enough for me to kind of scrape it off, and then I'll give it a clean from there. So I'll keep doing this, get rid of all the brown packing tape, and then we'll work out what we do with all these three pieces. We're all back together. All the brown tape has been taken off of the lid, and now we're going to work out how this lid kind of all works. There's a bit going on with this, and the best I could figure out is it's designed so that the lid can just come off, but also so the lid can open and stay open. So it doesn't have a hinge at the back. It has like just this sort of tab that runs along the back of the cover, and that tab sits into a slot which allows it to either sit back with leverage or be closed. Now the bad thing about that design is it puts a lot of stress on these two corners here, and you might see that there's a little bit of cracking on each of these corners, which is not ideal, but that just is what it is. So we'll have to make do with that. Now the other part of this lid, which took me a while to work out what's going on here, it's got this piece that sits on top, and from what I can gather, that just slides back like that and allows you access to the controls without lifting the lid. And it comes in with two parts. So this is the second part, which goes on the front here like this, and it used to have a hinge, so it would have hinged on the front of this piece, and the whole lot would have just slid back like so. You can see that little tab there on the on this piece, but it's snapped off, and so it's not going to be doing its job anymore. Anyway, what I'm going to try and do is attach these two pieces back together so that at the very least we can just lift the whole lid open and it doesn't all fall apart when when we lift it up. It'll sort of stay there and operate a bit like a traditional lid. So to do that, I've got these tiny little brass hinges, and I'm going to put them onto these two pieces to hold them together. So let me get started with that. Okay, so the hinges are all attached, and this piece is nicely going up and down now. I can open it, can still access the controls, and it closes it off as well. But the bolts I've used are a little long, so let's cut them. And that makes it finished. So the hinge is working great. We can lift this piece up and down, we can slide it back, we can still access all the controls that we need to. I think it is finished. So what I'm going to do now is grab a couple of different size records, throw them on here, and just check all the automatic functions work. But I'm pretty confident that this unit is ready to go. Found a couple of records that hopefully won't hit content match. Here's one with classic Australian songs, and here's my disco Saturday Nacht with the Ein Kleine Disco Band. And the best thing about this record is it's orange, which is pretty neat. So let's start with the 45 first, and we'll see if the record player works with that different size. So let's go with side 2, click go the shares, and we want to set it to 45 speed, and we want to set the disc size to 17, and then we'll hit start. Yep, looks like it's working as intended.
Out on the board, the old shearer stands, grasping his shears in his thin bony hands. Fixes his gaze on a bare-bellied yo. Lordy, if he gets her, won't he make the ringer go? Click go the shears, boys, click, click, click. Wide is his blow and his hands move quick. The ringer looks around and is beaten by a blow.
So all the functions seem to work. When I started it, it went to the right place on the record. When I stopped it, it's returned nicely, and it's going to turn itself off. So great, it's working on the 45. Let's throw the 33 1/3 on there and see if that works as well. Okay, we'll set the speed to 33. We'll set the disc size to 30 and start. Sounds like it's working. Well, that's a great result. I'm calling it finished. It sounds great. All of the automatic functions work. So I'm going to put it back together and get it back to its owner. You've been in the basement. Have a great day.